What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another video on the channel. In this one, I'm going to discuss my England squad for Euro 2024. Gareth Southgate has made that a little bit easier because he's put together a 33-man squad for the next two friendlies, and that will get trimmed down to the 26 that are going to go and play in Germany in the summer. I don't think any additional players will get called up without injury. So I think these are the 33 that we're picking from. So I'm going to go with an initial reaction to the overall squad and then put together the 26 players that I would personally take if I was in charge, which unfortunately I am not. So this is the squad that was announced yesterday. I actually think overall it's a pretty balanced squad, and I don't think there can be many major arguments between England fans. There's always going to be a difference of opinion. I appreciate that. It's football. There's going to be some players that have been left out or put in that people aren't happy with, like Harvey Elliott for Liverpool. I'm sure Liverpool fans think he deserves a shot soon. You know, Rashford being left out, there's maybe some Man United fans that don't like that. Maybe non-Man United fans as well. But overall, I don't think there can be many complaints. I think it's a pretty balanced squad. You've got good options in most positions. The one key takeaway for me is there's only one recognised left back in that squad, which is Luke Shaw. No Ben Chilwell. You've got Joe Gomez, who's played left back for Liverpool at times this season. You've got Trippier, who's played left back for England before, but no out-and-out left back. And I do think that's a potential problem because Luke Shaw is nowhere near guaranteed to be fit for this tournament. And Gareth Southgate himself has said that it's a long shot and they're just banking on him getting fit and then obviously being able to play all the matches during the tournament as well. So that is a big risk. And look, maybe it's a case that if Shaw's not fit, there's going to be something else there instead of just playing Trippier as a left back, maybe with someone starting a left back and inverting into midfield. I'm not too confident that is the case. I think it would just be a straight up swap, Shaw to Trippier. But maybe there is something more that Southgate is cooking. Probably not, but you never know. So I think that is going to be a major problem. And I actually think it's a bigger problem than perhaps people kind of realise, because I think in the 11 that Southgate goes for, and obviously you can change the 11 a little bit for opposition and stuff like that, but I think Foden's going to be in that 11, right, which is what everyone wants, but he's going to be on the left with Bellingham 10 and Saka right. But like in the Belgium friendly, he's going to be coming central. Now, to do that, you need someone that's going to overlap from left back, and Trippier could maybe do that, but it's not the same as having an out-and-out left back. So I do think it's a potential problem. Like Ben Chilwell, I'm not surprised he was left out. He got given 2 chances during the last 2 friendlies for England. He just wasn't great, right? And Chelsea, you know, Pochettino's obviously left now, but he hasn't really trusted him at left back all season. It's not just that Cucurella was playing well recently. Even earlier in the season, Colwill was playing instead. And most of the time when Chilwell's been used, especially early on, it was as a left winger. So it is a position where England aren't exactly blessed right now. So I think that's a potential problem. In midfield, no Calvin Phillips, no Henderson. I don't think it's a surprise that Calvin Phillips wasn't in there. But I do think it's a nice changing of the guard almost in terms of the midfield options for England. It's not necessarily a strong position. I mean, Declan Rice is unbelievable. And you could argue that he's more important to this team than someone like Jude Bellingham. But then you've got Trent listed as a midfielder, Curtis Jones, Mainu, Gallagher, and Adam Wharton all in there. And I think it's quite exciting, especially for the future. But right now, you'd almost want someone a bit more recognisable as an experienced central midfielder that's played there who can, I don't know, do what other teams, like I could look at the France midfield, for example. I just wish we had someone like that alongside Rice. But I do think we got some nice options there. And I think it's also very nice that Phillips isn't in the squad and neither is Henderson. I'm a bit surprised about Henderson being excluded. I think it's absolutely fair that people didn't want him to go. I wouldn't have put him in my 26-man squad either. But I'm a little bit surprised Southgate didn't call him up for this one. But I guess in some ways, he's basically shown that some decisions have been made and Henderson is not going to Germany. So why bring him along for this? It's not like he's a young player that needs experience. So I was quite happy with that. I think in terms of the forward players, Rashford is the one that caused a little bit of debate. I think it's fair when people say he doesn't deserve it. He hasn't played well this year. I completely get that. I'm also of the opinion that you don't necessarily need to pick every single player on form. At some point, you've got to go for someone that's going to fill a specific role. And I think Rashford is a slightly different profile to someone like Gordon and Grealish, who are going to play on the left, and obviously Phil Foden as well. But then I've just listed 3 names that can all play in his position. I think it's hard to argue that Rashford should be in ahead of them. The one thing I like about Rashford is he's a willing runner. And you look at that front line for, I was going to say Man United then, that front line for England, Foden, Saka, Kane, they all kind of want the ball to their feet, whereas Rashford will get in behind. But that's probably not enough to warrant an inclusion. I'm a bit surprised he wasn't in the 33-man squad. Even if he didn't make it to the 26, I'm surprised that Southgate's not taken a look at him. But again, I guess it's a positive that he's making decisive decisions, and Rashford out is one of them. Who else has left out? Reece James. That's not surprising. He can't stay fit. Honestly, I wish Reece James, you could tell me right now, he's going to stay fit for all 7 games in the tournament if England get to the final, that is. Because I think he is the right back that Southgate wants. He's a mix of Trent and Walker in one. And I think he is England's best right back. But availability is a big part of that. He's just never available. So overall good squad. I think can't be a huge amount of arguments to the players that have been left out. I'm sure there's some other players I've forgotten as well. But let's move on to who would be in my 26. Now, I've put the goalkeepers in already, right? Pickford, Henderson and Ramsdale. We all know that Trafford is getting cut. Maybe he's the England goalkeeper in the future, but that's not going to be the case right now. So I'm not even going to discuss them. We know Pickford's going to play. A couple of other players that I might as well just put straight in. So Kane is obviously going to be one of the forwards. I think Saka is first choice right wing. In fact, this will give you an idea of what I think the 11 will be. Foden will be the left winger and he'll come central, I think, as long as we've got someone that can overlap from left back. Luke Shaw is first choice left back. That is absolutely clear. And by the way, I think it's the right call. I actually think, I know Luke Shaw has got injury problems, but I think he's actually a little bit underrated. He's been very, very good for England. I think he offers quite a lot to that team. So I think we should all be kind of fingers crossed that he can get fit, because he's going to make a big difference to how they play. I don't usually make a lot of notes about football matches, but I've actually got one here after the Belgian game. What did I write down? Oh yeah, I put Foden played in the box midfield in off the left. So he started on the left but played central. Shaw is key. Needs someone to overlap so Foden can play left and drift central. And even back then, which wasn't that long ago, but I was thinking Luke Shaw has got to be fit. And so far he's not proved it, but I hope he can. Chilwell was just not good in that game. Rice is obviously going to be one of the central midfielders. Bellingham is almost certainly going to be the number 10. I think you could maybe make an argument to play Bellingham alongside Rice to get another attacker in. But I think especially as you get further into the tournament, that's not how Southgate's going to set up. And I think maybe you want to... Someone pointed out to me the other day that maybe you just want to get used to this kind of setup during the group stages as well. So I think that's almost certainly going to happen. In terms of centre-backs, look, we could maybe sit here and argue for ages that Harry Maguire shouldn't be in, but he's done well for England. If he's fit, he's going to be in as the left centre-back, and we know that it's going to be Stones alongside him. And I don't know, maybe there's 2 separate videos, what Southgate going to do and what would I do, but I actually don't think there's a good argument to exclude Maguire. Fair enough if you don't want him in the 11, but I think as part of the squad, if he's fit, he should be in there. And maybe this is his last tournament and he gets phased out ahead of the World Cup in 2026, presumably that will be. But I think he should be in. And then Kyle Walker's going to be first choice right back. The other central midfielder, I actually think that's, apart from left back, I think that's one of the toughest spots to fill of who should be in there. Mainu, Curtis Jones or Wharton. I think Mainu will go. Some people might disagree with that, and that's fair enough. I think he is still young, still a lot to prove. He's not been as good for Man United in recent weeks as he was kind of when he first burst on the scene, especially in and around when he had that England debut. But when he played in that midfield with Rice and Bellingham, he was very good. That combination of the 3 kind of moving positions worked really well. And I think because of that, it puts him ahead of everyone else in terms of getting in the squad. I don't think he necessarily starts. I think it's really interesting that Trent is listed as a midfielder. And in the last international break, Southgate wanted to play Trent as a midfielder. That's the kind of reports that came out in the media, but he was injured, so they couldn't trial it. So I don't think it's a certainty that Mainu starts, but I think it's absolutely a certainty that he's in the squad. And I think that's fair, right? So that's roughly what the team is going to be. Pickford, goalkeeper, Walker right back, Stones and Maguire centre backs, left back Luke Shaw, Rice and Bellingham will definitely be in midfield, probably with Mainu as well, or one of the others, but whatever. And then Saka, Kane, and Foden as the front three. So let's start putting some other players in. I think, given how good he's been this season, Anthony Gordon could be next in line for left wing, and I think he probably should be. And one thing I like about him is he can get in behind like Rashford. He's got goals and assists all season for Newcastle. But also, and I think Southgate will really like this, his work rate, getting back defensively, is extremely good as well. So I think he will be in there. And I also think, given the season he has had, Cole Palmer is definitely going to be the backup right winger to Saka. And also, when you've got an international squad, you are looking to have a bit of flexibility, right? If someone gets injured, okay, you want strength in depth in each position, but having someone else for a different position that can play in another one is really key. So Anthony Gordon cannot just play on the left. He could play number 9 if we needed to. He could play on the right as well. Cole Palmer could play as a number 10. And that means you can maybe drop other players in that position. So you don't necessarily... So Bellingham in this is the number 10. You don't necessarily need a straight backup for him, because Foden could play there, Palmer could play there. And if Foden has to play 10, Gordon can play left. And if Palmer has to play 10, well, Saka's playing right wing anyway. So I think those two have to be in. I think Trippier is in as the backup left back, to be honest with you. And I think for that reason, you've got to take him. He can cover on the right as well. And for me, Trent would be the backup right back who can also play in midfield. So I would take Trent and Trippier. So that's 3 right backs in this squad, which I know feels a little bit crazy. For what it's worth, I think Kwanzaa and Trafford. I'm just going to put these here so I remember who I've left out. I think they're being dropped, right? I don't think anybody expects them to go. We don't need a massive conversation about that. And I also think there's one... No, I think that's the only 2 players that are definitely getting dropped. I think, to be honest, I think Lewis Dunk shouldn't go either. Like, he's been good, and maybe at times over the last kind of 4 or 5 years, he's been a bit unlucky not to play more. And I'm not saying he should play ahead of Stones or Maguire or anything like that, but maybe he should have been given a bit more of a chance. I just think he wasn't very good last time he played in an England shirt. And I just don't think those kind of mistakes are worth having him in for. So I think I would definitely drop him. In terms of the other central midfielders, I think I would probably take both Wharton and Gallagher. I mean, Gallagher's been good for Chelsea. He can also play a little bit deeper, which allows Rice to play a little bit further up if that's what he wants to do. And Wharton's been incredible for Crystal Palace. I think him and Mainu are definitely exciting picks for England. I don't think it's great that there's a lack of experience there, but the quality is there if they can make that show on the, I was going to say the world stage, but the European stage, I suppose. And I think for that reason, I'd probably leave Curtis Jones at home as well. I think Jones is really good. I think that's maybe a little bit harsh, but I think with how good Wharton's been for Palace and the fact that Mainu's already performed in an England shirt, I'd probably have them ahead. And I just think Gallagher's energy is just super useful, and he can play in a couple of different roles within that midfield as well. So you could always bring him in to close down high up the pitch if you needed to, and that could be super handy towards the end of games and stuff like that. So I think Gallagher would be in, and I would drop Jones. You could make a case, because Stones and Maguire's injury records are not great, to take extra centre-backs, in which case you could maybe drop a central midfielder. But I think it's maybe a little bit too risky. I think which position you have a little bit less covering is probably one of the interesting topics, which we'll come on to in a second. As long as he's fit, I think Gay is first choice right centre-back, and I think that's fair. I think he probably is next in line after Stones and Maguire, so he would definitely be in for me. If we're going for a backup... Actually, let me just do the forwards, because that's easy. I would take Watkins for sure as the next in line to Kane. I think he's been incredible. I would also take Tony. I think if this was a 23-man squad, I'd probably leave Tony at home, because if it came down to it, Foden, Palmer could play false 9, Gordon can play up front as well. But I think in a 26-man squad, I would take that third number 9. You don't necessarily need them, because most of the time you're only going to play with one up front anyway. But I do think penalties should be a little bit of a factor. And I think the reality is you're probably not going to go so deep in your squad that you need another winger or another central midfielder. And look, last time we were in a European Championships against Italy, bringing players on to take penalties did not go well. But I think Tony is a level above that, right? You just don't expect him to miss. And he probably is a little bit closer in terms of profile to Harry Kane as well. So if you didn't want to play Watkins, you've got Tony as an option too. Or you just throw on, you know, both of them if things are going really bad and you just need to get extra attackers on the pitch. So I would probably take both of them. I just don't think you need extra wingers, basically. As the backup 10, I think it's between Maddison and Eze. I think I would take Eze. I think it's incredibly harsh to not take Maddison, and I want to be careful not just to pick players based on maybe the last 10 weeks or so, because let's be fair, Maddison hasn't been great for Spurs for a little while. Eze's been incredible, especially since Glasner came in and Elise and Eze were both fit together. But I just think Eze can maybe make something happen out of nothing. Can Maddison do that as well? Maybe to a lesser extent. And also, I feel like with Maddison, he's pretty much a number 10 and that is it. Whereas with Eze, he could play in off the left as well if we needed to. And I know we've got a lot of cover there, but it's just a little bit more of a flexible position. Ultimately, you could maybe leave both of them at home. If you thought that, you know, you needed extra cover in centre-back or something like that, you could leave Eze and Maddison there because Bellingham's going to play every minute pretty much that he's available for as the 10. And as I've already mentioned, you've got Palmer and Foden that can play there as well. So, I don't know. I think with the centre-backs, there is a worry over fitness. Even if Stones and Maguire are available at the start of the tournament, they might not be by the end of it. And so taking an extra centre-back could be an option. I'm kind of putting off the centre-back conversation because I think it's tough. My instinct is to go with Branthwaite because if Maguire gets injured and you want to play a left-footed left centre-back there, I think he's the only one in the squad, Branthwaite. I'm pretty sure Gay's right-footed. I should probably have checked that before I started recording. But I think it's harsh to leave Konza out. He's been pretty good for England. He can also cover at right back. But then I think we've already got Walker and Trent and Trippier who can play right back as well. So for me, that centre-back position under Maguire is basically Branthwaite's or Konza's. And I'm really not sure. And it feels harsh to leave either of them. And this is where maybe you drop a central midfielder or a number 10 and take both of them just in case. I'm going to put Branthwaite in for now, but I might come back to that. So he would go there. I need to do a bit. Let me just put Konza in the not going list. So how many? Oh, there we go there. How many players have I got not going now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I've got to drop someone else out of one more player out of Gomez, Grealish, and Bowen. And to be honest, you could drop any of them. I think Gomez has to go though. And the reason for that is I'm worried about that left back spot. I don't think we're going to do something clever like putting Trent left back and having him invert into midfield or something like that. I think it's just going to be a normal back four. I think Gomez has done it for Liverpool. Is that the player I want lining up for England in that position? Not really. Personally, I would have called up like, I don't know, Mitchell from Palace or Lewis Hall from Newcastle, just an out-and-out left back to at least have a look at them in the friendlies and then decide whether they're good enough to go, you know, to Germany. Because Luke Shaw, it's just such a potential problem there. So I think I would include Gomez. I mean, he can also play centre-back as well. I don't know. I haven't always been convinced with Gomez, but I think he's played pretty well on the whole this season in particular. So then it's one of Grealish or Bowen. And if we assume that Foden's first choice left wing and Gordon's the backup and Saka and Palmer on the right, you can choose either of those. My gut instinct is that I would take Grealish because I think towards the end of games, right, if you've got a lead and you want to hold on to it, you give Grealish the ball, he keeps hold of it or he gets fouled. And he's very, very good at that. But at the same time, you could turn around and say to me, what if we need a goal? We need someone to be direct. Who do you want, Grealish or Bowen? I probably want Bowen. But then if you think about it, Saka, Kane and Foden are the front three. You've got Gordon, Palmer, Watkins, Anthony and Eze on the bench, right? Is Bowen that much better than any of those other players for that role to come on and get you a goal? I'm not sure he is. Whereas I do think Grealish is just a slightly different skill set for holding just keeping hold of the ball essentially. And that's not the only reason you have him in. He's also a very, very good player, right? But I think that is why I'd probably choose Grealish over Bowen. But I also kind of agree with people that have said, you know, fair enough, you're leaving Rashford out. Why are you not leaving Grealish out as well? Because he's not been great. But he's also, you know, at times delivered an England shirt. And I think that does count for something. And I'll say it, I think it's incredibly harsh to leave Bowen at home because he was very good in the last couple of friendlies as well. So on my cut list, I've got Trafford, Kwanzaa, Dunk and Jones. I think most people expect those four to be left at home. Wouldn't be surprising, by the way, if Jones goes instead of Mainu or Wharton. But I think that is who I think I would cut Jones just about. And then Maddison, Konza and Bowen, I think it's really harsh to drop any of them. And the thing is, I can see an argument to take Konza as a centre back. Then you've got to drop one of these other players. I mean, do you drop Grealish and take Konza? Maybe you do. Maybe I just can't drop Gomez because of the left back thing. And I really like Eze, so I don't really want to drop him either. But I think that's the kind of players that Southgate will be considering. Drop an Eze because you've got cover for that number 10 position. Don't go for Grealish because you've got Foden and Gordon who can play on the left. I think it's close. I'm going to leave it at that, fully well knowing that Maddison, Konza and Bowen could all be in there. For what it's worth, I actually think Southgate will take Konza. And it could be over Branthwaite. It could be over one of the other attackers instead. I think he has played pretty well and he can cover that right back spot. And let's be honest, right? I've put Trent as the backup right back to Kyle Walker. That's not how Southgate views things, right? Trent is listed as a midfielder for a reason. If Walker gets injured and Trippier's playing left back, it'll probably be Konza that plays right back for England. But that is the squad that I'm going with. I think if you want to put Konza, Maddison, Bowen in there, absolutely fine. I think it's one of the, like I've said this for a long time now, England's got such a good squad, especially in attack. In fact, the further back you get on the pitch, the worse it gets in terms of the quality of depth. But in the front line, just incredible. And people say things like, how can you not take Bowen? Well, you've got to drop one of those attackers. Like, people are saying that Palmer should be starting, right? I think Saka's incredible, and Bowen plays in their position, so he's third choice. Like I said earlier, Grealish, for me, would be third choice on the left as well. So it's just one of the two. What skill set, what kind of profile do you want in your squad? That's it. Anyway, let me know in the comments below what you think of this team. If you've enjoyed it, give it a like, hit that subscribe button, and I'll catch you again soon.